So this is the 4-0 Impact series. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Laura Zizzo, who is the co-founder and CEO of Manifest Climate, based over in Toronto, a SaaS-based climate risk planning solution. Look, Laura, I've tried to get you on this I've been badgering you now for a few months, and you've done well to avoid me, but you finally agreed. So I'm really happy to have you on this.
Yeah, thanks for your patience.
And look, it's early morning over in Toronto, so I'm happy just to jump straight into it. So look, the first thing is, look, from your perspective, what is the challenge that you've identified?
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you are working on climate change, you understand this, but we always say is we're going through a climate transformation, which is the biggest industrial revolution we've ever seen. Like, we know that we have to move to net zero as quickly as possible, and we need to adapt to the impacts of climate change. And both of those things require a lot, right? They require policy, but they also require corporate decision makers to understand what the scope and scale of this challenge is and how we can respond. So that's really what I've been thinking about my whole career since, when I first stepped foot in the university back as an undergrad, and then thinking about how do you connect the dots on climate for decision makers? How do you open your eyes using the system that we have around climate so that we can have more resilient businesses and then hopefully, stay a stable economy. So really the problem we're trying to solve is, how do businesses think about climate change? How do they understand, manage, and then communicate climate risk and opportunity aligned with what investors are asking for and what regulators are asking for, as there's this call for more climate-related financial disclosures and business-relevant disclosure. So we really support our clients through that journey, thinking about how you understand and manage and then communicate aligned with the standards and regulations that are in the market. Okay,
interesting. So where does the journey start then? So does someone reach out to you and look for you guys to do like a consultancy piece and then make recommendations, or are you outwardly approaching big corporates and big business out there to introduce them to your service? How does it work?
Yeah, it's interesting that you use the consulting language, because this was really born out of my consulting firm, which was born out of my law firm. So it's really, we don't have a lot of like tech competitors right now. We really are doing some of the stuff that you would traditionally have a consultant do, but we're using the power of technology to do it. So it is a SaaS company, software as a service, but it's a service. So we've technologized that climate expertise, and actually I think we can do, more efficient work than many consulting firms, because we're using technology and machine learning to go through disclosures, understand how those corporate disclosures are aligned with the expectations around climate risk and opportunity from governance, strategy, risk management, not just climate carbon emissions, right? It's about the processes behind all of that. So it's a lot of us reaching out at this point to try to get clients to understand, we can help you with this. We can help you with compliance with the regulatory standards in North America, Canada, US, the UK, and Europe. And it's the same backbone, right? It's the same TCFD, maybe we can get into that, but the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure is the framework we've built upon. And that's the same no matter where you are in the world. So, we're getting some inbounds, of course, but it's a lot of us like reaching out and telling our story and having clients understand, oh, I need help with that. Yeah, I haven't heard of Manifest Climate before. We're pretty new, but we can help you through that, and we can do a lot of the work that you might otherwise have to hire an external consultant or someone else on your team to do.
So so there's an education piece to it, in terms of educating or re-educating corporate clients, for instance.
Yeah, for sure. So I refer to it as like a competency building exercise we're on right now. How do you connect the dots on climate, understand that there's some technology out there that can help you do this faster? One of our clients said, you should probably call yourself Control F, because what we're actually doing is like taking out the need to do Control F, right? Like created an algorithm, we've created a machine learning model that can actually control F at scale instantaneously and understand like what matters about climate change that you and your peers are talking about, benchmark you against your peers, and then say, here's how you can improve that disclosure aligned with what the expectations of the market are.
Understood. Like, I think that I think benchmarking against the company's peers is absolutely fundamental, because ultimately people are, or businesses are, competitive, and people always want to try and outdo the competition and at least be keeping pace. So look, interesting. What I'd like to just briefly touch on is maybe a little bit more about the story so far. So you mentioned earlier on that you come from a legal background. So not the most obvious sort of segue necessarily into what you're doing now. So could you just kind of talk us through that?
Sure. Yeah. I know. I didn't think when I went to law school, I'd be a tech CEO in 15 years. It's been 15 years though, since I graduated law school. And that journey has been all about how I think about climate and why, and how I can get that thinking to the people that are making decisions. Right. So when I first started as a young lawyer, I was working in a big law firm, one of the biggest in Canada, and doing environmental law, but I wanted to work on climate. And my boss at the time said, the business model here is that we answer the questions of our clients. I'm like, well, they're not asking the right questions.
Right.
So I became on this journey to be like, how do you get them asking the right questions? And so I started my own law firm in 2009, first climate change focused exclusively law firm in Canada. And that actually went very well. We became, a boutique law firm. There were 7 lawyers there. But by the end of 7 years of doing that, I realized I was actually a management consultant disguised as a lawyer, because there wasn't really law. We were doing more strategic management consulting. So in 2015, I transferred over to be founding a strategic consulting firm. And that's where really the idea of Manifest Climate was born. So we were doing the same type of strategic management consulting work for so many different clients, from like small not-for-profits to some of the biggest banks in the world. And we were doing the same repeatable things, looking at their disclosures, talking about how they could do better, doing peer reviews, pulling out data points on their peers. And I realized we can build technology that does this at scale, and we can help those that not only those that can afford the big consulting budgets, but everyone else needs to go through this. So the idea of bringing something, using technology to scale that climate expertise. So it's not just the Microsofts and the big banks that can hire the good thinking, it's everyone. So how do you get something scalable at a price point that's accessible to all and can move people through this climate transformation quicker? So I was joined by a tech co-founder in 2020, Jeremy Grevin, my co-founder, and we said, how do we bring my climate expertise and the strategic consulting with his SaaS scalability background together? And that was when Manifest Climate was born in 2020.
Nice. And the journey so far. So you've gone from one person, then 2 people with a great idea. You've turned more of a service into a scalable business. You've obviously grown, and
Manifest Climate started with like about 16 people, because it really was the consulting firm. And we said, are we all in? Are we all going to say, okay, let's switch this consulting firm to tech? So it was really, when we started, it already had a team of people who've been thinking about this for a long time, and we all said, yeah, let's do it. Let's move. So and so then we decided, are we going to use our consulting? So this is like a age-old tech story, right? Do you bootstrap using the consulting revenues you already have to build this faster? And then we were hit with COVID, and COVID was a real opportunity for us. We didn't actually see a decline in our revenue because of COVID, but what we saw was an opportunity to go way faster, because people understood disruption. They understood that, oh, science is telling us we should be paying attention to this thing, and we all changed really quickly. So I said, how do we use that story to go faster? And we decided at that point to kind of, let's not bootstrap, let's look for venture capital financing, let's go out and raise a seed round. So we did that. We raised a seed round, and it took us like 6 weeks from when we had our first meeting to when we were like done. And we raised a fairly significant seed round. It was crazy because of COVID and like just back to back Zoom meetings, getting
that is unheard of. That is
it was pretty insane. I mean, I think we had a great idea. We had a great market potential. We had a really unique founding team that were both experienced and said, let's go. And definitely reputational. But we also had a pilot that we had 14 public companies that said, yeah, we'll sign on to try this.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was quite rare. And we had those longstanding relationships. And then, within 13 months, we were raising our Series A. So we closed our Series A in March of 2022. And now we're on a growth trajectory, just refining our product. We've launched our new product in market last November, and it's had a lot of great uptake. And now we're just in like expansion mode for sure.
Understood. Look, I think, while sometimes it can be a bit crass to talk about numbers, I think it's relevant to point out it was a fairly significant Series A round. So if you don't want to say it, I'll say it, but it was north of 25 million, which is, I mean, that's uber impressive for one, but in 13 months, that's especially commendable. So look, excellent. Look, I suppose my closing kind of question would be, what does 2023 look like for you now?
Yeah.
So it will be that you would have closed the round a year ago in March, right?
That's right. Yeah. So we've been working hard on improving the product, getting more clients on board. Proud to say we had an amazing end of last year with lots of new clients coming on board, understanding the urgency of understanding how to talk about climate change. Now that we have the SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission in the US, almost finalizing their climate-related disclosure rules, there's that regulatory push, and we're there to help clients understand there's a solution that can help them do that really well, So I think it's really all about getting to more clients, understanding how we can improve our product for the next year or so. And it's a really exciting time for us, for sure.
Excellent. It certainly sounds it. And it's good to hear of a success story that was born out of COVID, or at least not necessarily born out of COVID, but COVID accelerated the trajectory. So look, Laura, thank you very much for agreeing to jump in on this. Really interesting story, very inspirational. As I said to you at the beginning of this, the kind of people that are going to be watching this are people like you in the making, CEOs, co-founders, CTOs in the making, people who've got, a really good idea, but they're not quite sure whether or not they can, they can make the jump because it takes a lot of sacrifice. And in the wider socio-economic climate, there's definitely some nervousness. But the good news is that if there is money floating around, which there is, venture capital is flooding into climate-related businesses.
And I happen to be a woman, which also helps.
There you go.
It's like some of these things, climate and being a woman have not always helped with business trajectory, but right now I think we're seeing a switch in, where money wants to go and having some deliberate attention to this stuff, which is great. And I'm happily will be the poster child for that. But the other thing I wanted to mention, if these people are thinking about this, one of the stories about how I got here is thinking about how can I help people do their best work on climate? Like, how can we create a platform for that? Right. And I think there's so many folks out there that want to do this kind of work, that want to, bring their unique skills. And you don't have to know a lot about climate change to be working here at Manifest Climate. We have data scientists, we have product developers, we have marketing folks, and they're not necessarily climate experts. We're all learning together. But how can you take all those skills to actually help us move through the transition faster? That's really what we're trying to do at Manifest Climate. This is not a niche problem anymore. This is like an all of business problem and all of society problem, and everyone needs to have their unique skill sets and thinking about how they can work on that. So I'm just really proud to have been part of creating that platform for folks to do their best work on climate, both within Manifest Climate, but also with our clients and their teams and thinking about this. So it keeps me going. And it's really great to see the interest from you and others in bringing more people to this problem.
Excellent. Well, look, as I said, you know, definitely great story. And one of the things that I'm seeing, which is really encouraging, is that, well, twofold actually. There's lots of businesses now that are making the jump to be more responsible. You could argue that the early adopters were doing it for the right reasons, and now with legislation and changes in law and pressure coming from the government, etc., it's forcing people, forcing companies to actually be more responsible. But the net result is still the same. That people are starting to make more informed decisions. But what we're seeing is an influx of individuals, you know, technologists, people, you know, smart people that can choose to apply their intellect in any other industry, but they're choosing to do it in this. And that's where the real impact is. It's you know, it's going to be at scale. So brilliant. Well, look, thank you very much for jumping on this. Much appreciated, and look forward to seeing what 2023 brings for you and Manifest Climate.
Thank you. Looking forward to it as well.
Brilliant. Thank you.